I am building a 14 by 18 foot shed, and I cannot tell you how long I have been waiting to do this. I have a cement slab in my backyard. I've had it there ever since I bought the house. It is 18 foot by 18 foot, and so it'll allow me to also put a 4-foot porch on the front of this. So if you're framing this up, you could use a hammer, you could use a screw gun. I'm using a 20-volt Craftsman framing nailer. It's fantastic. I'll put a link to it down below, and Lowe's sent that to me. I'm also going to drill a series of 5/8 holes along the frame bottom, and this will be for bolting it down or lagging it down to the cement. Now the back wall is framed up. I'm going to go ahead and put the siding down on this and go ahead and staple it down. And I'm using 1/4-inch crown staples into this. This is just going to save me a lot of extra work, and all I have to do is find my son and have him help me stand this up. Like I said, this is pretty heavy, but it sure saves a lot of work. Now, using a speed square, I can mark both the top and bottom at the same time. That's a big time saver as well. I'm going to continue to drill those holes in the bottom about every 2 feet or so. Once I stand up another wall, I'm now able to take these and nail them down to each other, making sure they're square and connected. You know, doing a solo build like this, clamps really come in handy. So as soon as I wrap up nailing down the corners, the 2x4 across the top, this is going to give you that double header and strengthen it up. Speaking of that, I'm going to use some 2x6s to go above the 6-foot doorway, and I'm going to cut a piece of 1/2-inch plywood to go in between. That'll make it that 3.5 and fit perfectly above the doorway. Using a hammer drill, I'm going to go ahead and drill all the way around and then anchor down the frame to that cement slab. This thing isn't going anywhere. Oh, and we're level too. I'm going to start setting all the siding up on this, and this goes fairly well, but I'll tell you something. This is definitely a 2-person job if you've got the spare people. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut the window out, and that same material I'll be able to use for shutters later on. Same thing with cutting the doorway out. I want to save the material that comes out of there because those will become the doors. I'm going to also go and use a level all the way around. That will help to make sure that I'm staying level and straight on this project. With one exception, we do it better. No one could love you like I do. We're breaking on, we're breaking up. What kind of virus am I to you? Easy as night, I am the few. Let's make this castle to a ruin. We're stepping on mine. Now that the panels are on it, I'm going to put a coat of paint on this. Now you might think I'm too early to do this, but I disagree. Because there's no trim on, this is easier to paint this way, and it gives me a chance to get 2 good solid coats on this before putting any trim on it. I'm also going to lay a bead of silicone caulking all the way around the shed so to help seal it up. Castle, ruin. Rafter time. Now this is definitely one of the most difficult parts of the project, and doing this alone makes it even harder. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just had it in my head I had to do this as a solo. Now I set the beams every 4 foot apart, with the first one being at a 2-foot mark just so that it's even. But this gives it a lot of added strength to it. And oh yeah, we're still level. Now I'm going to build a couple of jigs that will help support the center beam of the shed. The trick here is to make them temporary but strong enough to hold that beam into place and will keep me from having to have somebody at both ends. So once I bring it up to the height I need, I can secure it down, and this is a temporary board, but it's going to secure this down so that I can set the beam on top. I'll do this on both sides. Now once I have that, I'm going to pick it up, set it into place, and I'm going to set a clamp on it to hold it so I can go over to the other side and do the same thing. Once I have that in place, I'll check for level. I'm in good shape. Now, I'm going to start working on the rafters coming down, and there are some fantastic formulas out there, and well, I didn't use any of them. Once I had determined my angle, I used that as a template to cut the rest of the rafters. Of course, I pre-marked all the way across so I could see where each rafter goes, and then would just set them up into place and toenail them in. I will also come back with some hurricane ties and use those on these as well because, well, I live in Virginia and we occasionally get the hurricane. Now that the rafters are in place, I can start building the porch and connecting into those rafters coming down. Now it happened that I was able to do both eaves using 2 sheets of OSB plywood. That worked out great and was a huge money saver. One of the really great things by adding a porch to the front of this was that softer angle allowed me to put my sheeting up there and have something to work from. Then it was easier to bring additional sheeting up and set those into place. Hand-me-down t-shirt, slicking on my back. Heading for a fall. One of the things you're going to want to remember to do is stagger those patterns of your 4x8 sheeting. This will help give strength to that roof. On my way to nowhere, I'm not afraid at all. I'm also going to add some metal trim around the edge, not only on the front but all the way up the sides and around the back, and this helps give you a drip edge for your roofing. Now, along the edge, I took some of these shingles, sliced them in half. I'm going to put a full row all the way around the roof. This will help give you a starter strip. Once you have that in place, you can now start putting your architectural shingles down. Now, as you're putting the shingles down, they will give you a pattern, and you can get it online or whatever. But like with these architectural shingles, it starts with your first row, and then the second row is like 6 inches in, the next one's like 12, and the next one's like 18 or something like that. You'll want to check those patterns. This is a time-consuming thing, doing roofing, but it's worth taking your time and making it look good. So now I'm going to utilize the inside of the shed to start painting, putting a coat of paint on some of my trim boards, using some of the adhesive, and getting all of the corners done. Now, I used some of the same material that I used for the lap siding. I just split it in half, and it works great for this. Now I'm going to use some of this window sealant tape and set that all into place before setting in some of the windows. Now, I picked up the window from an organization called Habitat for Humanity, where you can purchase leftover or used building supplies at a very low price, and it also helps to support your community. This 20-volt crown nailer has been really handy on doing all the trim work. setting the lap siding in. It's going to give it just a little more unique look so that you just don't have the same T111 siding going all the way up. I'm going to go ahead and put some of the accent color down now because, well, I can, and it works out that well. I'm going to go ahead and use that same accent color on the porch posts as well. I used a pocket hole drill, and these really help, especially putting the doors together and keeping your screws out of the way, but also getting good contact with these. Once again, using construction adhesive, and I pre-painted the door panels that I'd cut from the original siding, so this is going to help me in this process as well. I picked up a couple of door windows I'm going to set in here, and I'm really excited for how these are going to look. Now, using that same trim, I'm going to start working around the door and securing all the trim on here as well. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other door and start working on the trim around the door space. I'm going to go ahead and set one of the hinges on, but I'm going to want to make sure these are level and fit well. So I'm going to use a clamp on the inside to help pull this up to a perfectly level spacing on here, and that's going to allow me to come back in and set the rest of my hinges on the door. You can see the spacers I set underneath it as well, and that helps to hold it into place. That works perfect. I'll do the same on the other side now. Oh yeah, that works great. Now remember that piece I cut out of the window? I'm gonna now take this and start making a set of shutters to go on each side of that window. The biggest thing I learned from this project is trying to utilize all the materials you have and make the most of everything. After giving these a few hours to set and dry, we're ready to install. You know, one thing that's amazed me about this project is I have pretty much built the entire project using only 20-volt cordless tools, whether it's from the framing nailer, the crown stapler, or even just the saw and the drills. It's been great. I picked up a couple of these lights from Amazon and I like the looks of these. I think they're going to be great. Now, I decided underneath the porch, I wanted to put some panels up there. So I decided to use some 3/8 pre-grooved plywood from Lowe's. Now, I also laid a semi-transparent cedar stain on it, and I thought that would give it a nice look to it. Now, after cutting it in 4-foot sections, I trimmed around each of the posts, and that would make it easier to set these in and have everything locked in and good to go to start with. What I didn't realize was how incredibly awkward these panels would be to set up there alone. I managed to do it, but you know, this was one of those things that I just didn't think it'd be a big deal, and it really gave me a run for my money. Now, one of the things I really wanted to do was do some decorative sculpts or whatever you call that at the top of the support posts. This just gives a nice finished look to me, and I wanted to do something that was a unique design or something special for the shop. So after cutting these, I decided I'm going to add about 2 inches onto each set of these, and once again I'm using all leftover material that was a drop off from the rafters. I'm going to pop that up to about a 1/2 inch off, and that'll help make it easy jig for centering these supports on. yeah, that's going to work. Go ahead and set some screw holes down and get these stained. Now, after getting these all screwed down, I decided I wanted to take some 1.5 or 2-inch PVC that's 1/4 inch thick, paint it up like iron, and then bend that around the posts and use some tacks to give it that bolt look. Check that out. I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I did a 3 sides to it and then a cut for the back that could be set in, and you can't even tell that it's a separate piece. This is really starting to look good. Okay, now I'm going to start on building the weather vane, or I believe they call it a cupola, for the top. So the base of it is basically going to be 4 sides or a square box that also meets the eave of the shed. Now I spent a little time going up and down the ladder trying to figure out until I had this just correct, and then using a jigsaw to kind of round off the top of that. Then I use that as a pattern, trace it on this side, and now it's basically like building a box. And then I'm going to take the table saw and cut the other 2 pieces off on that same angle to fit the roof. Now you may realize I had absolutely no idea what I was doing here. I was just kind of winging it as I was going along. Now I'm going to start laying out the 4-sided roof of this. I thought I had a handle on this, but actually not so much. So after building kind of a brace that will fit into the center of this, I thought, well, now I can start kind of building the panels up to fit it. So while some of that is setting up, I'm going to come out here, sand it down, and get a coat of paint on everything. Now I'm going to use some paper to create the template, and I'm going to set that on a roll of metal sheeting that I have. And I'm going to trim it down and then use the metal brake that I have to bend up these ankles. Now this is actually a cheap metal brake that I modified, and I'll put a link in the top that you can see how I did that. Luckily, the metal helped me to hide a multitude of sins. Now I'm going to use a paint that's from Rust-Oleum that's called Hammertron, and it gives kind of a copper hammered look to it, and I've used it in the actual paint but never in the spray, but the spray seems to work just as well. Now you're going to want to make sure you use some roof sealant underneath this, and then go ahead and screw that base down to the roof. So I built all this basically in layers, so once that's on, I screw the next level on and then bring the roof down, and I've got that set up to put screws up in through the base of it. Now I picked up some vents from Lowe's that are real easy, and I'm just going to tack those in as well. I'll put links to them in the description below. Then I'm going to come up and set the weather vane into place and make sure that it lines with north, and then put some silicone around the edge of it, and I'm good to go. So, you know, it's basically enclosed. I still got a few minor things that I need to do with it, but for the most part, I think I'm feeling pretty good about it. Now I just got to figure out how I'm going to finish the inside.